Okay, so another week. It's Saturday, late morning, early afternoon. Just spent a week at the Alternatives Conference. It was a good time. Um, it was cool. I made a lot of good connections. I realized I was actually really nervous being there. I just had these expectations for myself. I felt like I had to do something or be meaningful or important or whatever. Because I did that APA protest and then a counter conference, and I felt like, ooh, I need to make a big impression with people or do something meaningful, and I didn't really feel comfortable doing so because really I wanted to be there. I'd never been there before. I was new. I just wanted to kick back and learn. And so I was nervous that there would be this sort of pressure to do something meaningful, even though I just wanted to be a fly on the wall in a lot of ways. And then I hosted the open mic. I was super nervous about that because just, the idea of okay, is it okay? What can I say? What can't I say? There's all these stupid things like that. And I think there's a shift for me going from this idea of what can I and can't I say to what should I or shouldn't I say to what do people want to hear and not hear. Because can say and cannot say means that you'll be kicked out or not asked back or that kind of thing because you said something. And I get pissed off by that, and I think it causes me to push back and want to be more crude or inappropriate. But really, it's as a takeaway from it, it's what do I want the audience to hear, and who do I want to reach, and what do I want them to say? And obviously, I want them to laugh. Because I did talk to this guy. I told a couple, there's a couple jokes about where Bill Cosby's name comes up, and I had gotten some criticism earlier in the year for making remarks that weren't jokes about forced psychiatry being like rape, and that pissed off some people. And I was looking at the jokes I was going to say for this thing, and I was fuck, making a joke about Bill Cosby is now all of a sudden oh, now I'm making jokes about sexual assault. But at least this would be a comedy routine and not a serious speech at a protest. But so I did take out one, I did censor it a little bit, but I did test the waters and still make a smaller joke. I just kind of experiment and see what do people respond to and like. And on the last day that I was there was this guy who started yelling at me, not about what I said, but I didn't have any control over the PA system, but the audio was really loud, and some people were auditory, they have auditory sensory problems, and so it was hurting people's ears, but I had no control over the audio. And so this guy came up and was screaming at me, and I just looked at him. I was I don't know how to change, I don't have control over that. And but then I talked to him on the last day to be hey, are we all right? Are we cool? Because I hope you're not angry. I mean, you were angry. I hope you're not angry with me. Let's kind of talk. And then we talked a little bit, and he was telling me, he made a remark, and it was a black man, and he's you got to lose that Cosby joke. And I thought about it, and I was I was why? And he's kind of saying because the women in the room, they think that triggers something with them. And it's I want people to see that, I want the people or the world to see that visual of people forcing psychiatric drugs on you being, assault. It's wrong. It's terrible. And I guess using that imagery. And I think there was also a sense of I don't know what Bill Cosby means to the world and to the black community. I grew up knowing who he was, but I didn't watch him. And so I'm using him as a punching bag, not really knowing the impact it has on other people. I don't know what, and so it's a matter of I don't mind. I wonder okay, is that an appropriate? Not appropriate. It's not about appropriate. Is it a joke that I want to include? Is it part of the message I want to give? Is it alienating my audience that I don't intend to alienate? If I want to alienate some people, I want to be purposely alienating, not accidentally. It's gave me some stuff to think about. And there was a situation where was really upset about this. I was in a workshop where they're talking about calling the police, and I was telling a story that was really emotional for me. And in the story, I was mentioning, and I used the phrase that I sat on the ground and cried like a little bitch. And the person took the microphone away from me and was like, I'm not allowing that misogynistic language in my workshop. And I was like, I felt like I was opening up about something that was really emotional. I had never told anyone about this. It was really personal. And in the story, I'm saying I sat on the ground and cried like a little bitch. And I'm like, I know the word bitch isn't a good word to use at somebody. It's not nice. And I'm like, I'm referring to myself. I think it should be okay to call myself anything I want. I don't think you can tell me I can't. Then again, they're not saying I can't. They're saying in this workshop, it's not appropriate. I'm like, okay. But for me, it did feel like the word to capture what I was going after. Because the idea, if I say I'm crying like a little baby, that doesn't capture the issue with a man crying is that it is representative, not of females, but of this archetypal female of a little bitch, of a weak feminine quality. And so even to say, oh, I was crying like a little girl or crying like a woman, I feel like that's insulting to women, saying that it's accurate that women or, kind of behave in that. But if I say crying like a little bitch, I'm saying this representative characteristic archetype of a female. And obviously there wasn't time to explain all that. So I felt just this idea, am I bad for the movement if I talk a certain way? And to me, that's an expression of emotion. And you're telling me not to express my emotions, and that seems foreign. But, I don't want anyone to be hurt by what I'm saying. And I feel like these ideas are more confusing than the black and white that we like to make things out to be. We like to make it out to be black and white. Oh, this is a bad word. Don't say that ever. That will solve the problems. And I don't know. So, I was upset by that. But it was a good conference. I met some great people. I made some nice connections. It felt good to be there. I didn't get any work done this week. There was a few days where I didn't even do my yoga kriya. The Airbnb situation I was at was not great. I had issues with parking, and then I wasn't. Not that I didn't get along with the host, but I had some awkward interactions with them, and that was tough. And, I've just been thinking about, do I want to keep travel? What's going on with the travel and stuff? And I had this new... Because, being in a different place every week is tough. Because the housing situation is different. I can't, get a month-long sublet. I can't... it's a different type of setting and different costs of things and comfort and then I got this new idea in my head that I'm real fixated on, which is the idea of doing some kind of an event, maybe I'm thinking of a youth freedom festival in September, in Washington, D.C., right in the National Mall, an event to celebrate self-directed learning and freedom and liberation and unschooling and Sudbury schools and democratic schools and all of these things. And I've got a lot of fears about doing it, about the idea, would anyone show up? I've never done something like this before. What would it look like? How would it work? And then I want it to be a protest in a way, not people with signs and picketing and stuff, but a demonstration, a public display for the world to see what other people are accessing and able to do with unschooling and just self-directed learning in general. And, how will I be perceived? Will I be made out to be a monster? Will the kids be perceived in a negative way? Will I be responsible for that? So, I don't want to get... This video's going kind of long anyways, and I'm sure I'll have more to say about that in the future. But, I'm doing all right. I find myself, thinking about substances and, marijuana and drugs and stuff. And I always wonder, okay, if I'm not doing these things, that's good. I guess it's better than doing them. But, what is the underlying thing that makes me think about getting high? What's the underlying thing that makes me think about, drinking? Some kind of escape. What am I escaping from? So this video's going much longer than I expected. So I'll just wrap it up there.